Hello everyone, my name is Jenny Gawronski and I'm here with a video to discuss a study I did this summer called The Progression of an Art Education Practicum Course During the COVID-19 Pandemic. During this short video, I will introduce the study, frame it in some relevant literature, discuss my findings and implications for the future. Thank you for joining me and let's get started. To begin this study, I would like to do a land acknowledgement. I want to acknowledge that I'm living and working on the indigenous lands in the Pacific Northwest. Here is a map of the location. I'm a guest on the lands of the Duwamish, Snoqualmish, Snoqualmie, and Puyallup peoples. With this land acknowledgement, I want to encourage us to use artwork made by Native Americans in K-12 and higher education art classes. Here is an example. It's a beautiful work by Betty Pascoe, who lives in the Pacific Northwest. This weaving she titles, "There Were No Roads Back Then, Native Highway 101. You can see the beautiful canoes that she has created and the waves, both referenced in the weaving and in the frame. Now let's talk about the catalyst for this study. My presentation relates to the theme of this year's Emerging Conversations Conference. The focus on the future of art education in our uncertain times connects to my topic of reimagining what online practicum-based art education courses can become. As we are uncertain about the lifespan of COVID-19, it is possible that online learning will be needed for quarters and semesters to come. Therefore, a robust discussion about the affordances and constraints of utilizing technology to support the development of future art teachers, and any teachers for that matter, is needed as we face the continued physical distancing of schools. And so this study asks, how can we best prepare pre-service teachers online? And I will explore this question through my self-study research. Now let me tell you about the teacher education program in which this study is situated. I have been working with this program in the Pacific Northwest for over 4 years. We are a social justice focused program with 60 teacher candidates learning to be elementary general education teachers. And we have both English language teachers and other dual languages, such as Spanish, Mandarin, and Vietnamese. This is a 1-year graduate level program where the teacher candidates engage in university coursework, which used to be on campus, and a year-long student teaching placement. The course I'll be discussing in this video is the art education course that occurs over the summer. So that is the study introduction, and now let's frame the study in relevant literature. I'll do this by focusing on how teachers are navigating online education during COVID-19. We'll look more specifically at how that's done for art education, and then I'll talk about self-study and teacher education. So as we all know, the COVID-19 pandemic has drastically changed most aspects of our lives. Central to this disruption is the disease's effect on education for all ages of students. In terms of teacher preparation, research is emerging about how teacher educators are preparing future teachers using virtual remote education. And because of the global nature of the pandemic, research from a range of countries has been published about this endeavor. The research tends to focus on 2 areas of teacher education. First, the foundations, the methods courses, and then the practicum experience. Research on university-based coursework reveals that teacher educators are utilizing their learning management systems for asynchronous portions of class. They're posting instructional materials and providing feedback on assignments. But teacher educators are also holding synchronous classes, and they report varying degrees of innovation with technology tools and success in those spaces. Other teacher educators recommend redesigning class with synchronous meetings, training students on specific technologies, and using project-based and choice learning activities to help students take a constructivist approach to learning how to teach. While it was more challenging for teacher educators to navigate the complexity of remote teaching in terms of the practicum experience, there are some promising results. The teacher educators wrestled with how to provide mentorship virtually, with examples ranging from weekly meetings as a place for student teachers to reflect on their experiences, develop community, and troubleshoot pedagogical approaches for online teaching. Most commonly, teacher educators suggest that pre-service teachers be given constructivist-based opportunities to learn about teaching. So by positioning them as active sense makers, pre-service teachers can be mentored through the lesson plan design and delivery process using digital tools. So that's how teacher educators are dealing with the pandemic in general settings and in multiple subject areas. Now let's focus on what happens in art education spaces. A search into the impact of COVID-19 in terms of art education reveals scant literature. I think as we're dealing with the pandemic, more research will be coming out. But the research that's available suggests that both visual and performing art teachers are grappling with how to engage students in meaningful art education experiences during the pandemic. So in terms of pre-service art education teachers, teacher educators such as Coleman and McDonald suggest that artists and art educators have a significant role to play in reimagining what art teaching and art learning looks like during and beyond the pandemic. They suggest that pre-service teachers can be positioned as co-designers, embracing new technology, and we focus on the relational aspect of teaching and art education. It's also relevant to discuss the role of artists and art experiences that are played outside of teacher education fields. And with that, we focus on art therapy. Art therapy has emerged as a vital element to explore the experiences of people during COVID-19. Potash et al. Posit that art therapists can work with people in communities utilizing practices that align with public health psychological guidelines. These include using art for expressive activities, to challenge stigma, and to amplify hope. Now let's look briefly at the self-study research in teacher education. My research study is rooted in a long-established practice of teacher educators engaging in self-reflection in order to improve their teaching about teaching. For example, teacher educators such as Barry and Loughran critically examine their courses, and after going through this process, they highlight the important relationship and partnership needed between teacher educators and students when learning about teaching. Not only do self-studies help teacher educators understand and share effective pedagogical practices, making our experiences visible allows teacher educators to find connections to other educators to build community and work through tensions that may arise. Ken Zeichner suggests that we think about self-study research as part of the larger group of teacher education research, that it's important to situate our voices into this field and honor the experiences of teacher educators. I hope for this study that a focus on art teacher preparation is helpful in this regard. For this study, I asked the research question, how can I redesign my art education methods course during the COVID-19 pandemic, along with the parameters of the teacher education program? And so this means that my class is not isolated in its own bubble, but that I'm working with the rest of the faculty in the teacher education program to create a robust experience for our teacher candidates. My methodology includes reflection and memoing throughout the entirety of the summer class, both as I prepared, taught, and reflected after. And then I analyzed my memos for themes and discussed these themes with colleagues. All right, so let's talk about the class itself. Let's see what happened. So these will be the findings. First, I'll talk about my reimagination of the class during the global pandemic. Then I'll highlight some strengths that came out of my analysis and some areas of improvement. So let's start with reimagining the art education course. I had 60 pre-service teachers, and again, these were general education teachers learning how to teach art in their classroom. This was my 4th year teaching the class, and so I had a lot of experience leading up to it. I'll begin by telling you what the class was like in prior years, and then shift to my reimagination during COVID-19. In prior years, The class was in 2 sections, so 30 students per section, and it was embedded within a summer school. So we met in a school, in the art room, which was so lovely, for our face-to-face classes. And we connected the work in the art education class to the literacy methods course, and I found this to be a huge strength of the teacher education program design. The teacher candidates were partnered with mentor teachers during a student teaching summer experience during summer school, and they learned how to do read alouds, and they focused on specific themes within those readings, and we connected those with our art education. The students did warm-up activities to build their confidence and experience with art. And then within the small groups that they were in with their literacy methods courses, they planned an art lesson to connect to the themes of the courses, and then they taught the lesson. There was so much learning that happened throughout this course design as they leaned on each other through the co-designing and co-teaching experience. And so I wrestled with how could I have a similar experience in an online space. And so this year we had our coursework over Zoom. And the focus of the entire summer in the teacher education program was the Black Lives Matter organization and movement. And then we had a child study experience. So each of the 60 teacher candidates were matched with one elementary student that they would meet with each day over Zoom for about an hour. And so that was the place where the art class could connect with and help them build their teaching experiences. And so instead of having a variety of art making experiences, I focused on art world exploration with the teacher candidates. We looked at tons of online resources for learning about and exploring artists' work. And then in a little bit, I'll tell you about what we'd made with that research. And then for the art teaching component, I had them individually design a lesson plan for their child study student, which was heavily scaffolded on my end. They practiced with a peer, and then they did their teaching of their art lesson for about 20 minutes with their child study student. So that's a brief overview of how I reimagined the class, and now I'll give you a few more details. Again, the focus was the Black Lives Matter movement and this one-on-one child study connection that the pre-service teachers developed. And so we spent a lot of time in class and outside work time exploring the art world. What resources are available for the teacher candidates to use in their classrooms, and trying to help them build a better understanding of art, past and present. And so once they started to do this research, we focused back on the Black Lives Matter movement, and we looked for what artists are out there who are making work that connect with the Black Lives Matter movement. And I had them do a bunch of research and each choose a specific artist. And from that, we created a virtual art exhibition of artists that celebrate the guiding principles of the Black Lives Matter movement. And I'm going to show you a little bit later on what that came to be. And I've been thinking so critically about how pre-service teachers can learn how to design lessons, teach the lessons, and reflect the lessons in online spaces. And so I will talk more about that in terms of the strengths and areas of growth. Now that I've briefly outlined my reimagination process for the course, I'd like to share with you some design strengths that I found and areas of improvement. Let's begin with the strengths. I think one of the biggest strengths of this course redesign for online learning during the global pandemic was the focus on creating a resource for artists who make work that celebrate the Black Lives Matter movement. Not only did the teacher candidates research and learn so much about these artists, we were able to create something that could be shared and used by others. So the teacher candidates did all the research and they shared it with me so I could put together a website for them. This is the homepage of our website. We're calling it the Black Lives Matter Art Exhibition. And again, we curated this for a class assignment, and I would love for you to check out the website yourself. The address is on the bottom of the screen, www.eltep art2020.weebly, which is weebly.com. You'll see on the website that we focused on the guiding principles of the Black Lives Matter that were highlighted from a local school's Black Lives Matter lesson plan. These are diversity, restorative justice, globalism, queer affirming, unapologetically Black, collective value, empathy, loving engagement, Black women, and Black families and villages. And so the teacher candidates use these categories to find artists to share with each other and use for their lesson plan. Here's an example of an artist that a student chose to use. They were asked to find an image of the artist themselves, write up some biographical information, and then share with us at least one piece of artwork with an accurate description. And so if you look at the website, you'll see over 60 examples of incredible artists celebrating the Black Lives Matter movement. We really hope that this can help inspire you and other art educators to move in this direction in lesson planning with artists. And this resource didn't end at the creation. We then used that for the teacher candidates to plan their lesson with their child study student. And so they already knew so much about the artist, and they designed, heavily scaffolded, a lesson plan that engaged their individual student and sometimes their family members in a discussion about the Black Lives Matter movement and the artwork itself. And once they planned the lesson, they then taught it with a peer in a breakout room in a following class, received feedback, and then taught their about 20-minute lesson with their child study student. And so these are the strengths that I believe that came out of my course design. The creation of a resource for us to use in class, but also to live out in the world. And then the lesson planning experience that the students went through. While those are the strengths, there are definitely some areas of improvement. So let's look at those. For my areas of improvement, I want to continue to challenge myself to talk about art as an important aspect of social justice teaching. As we question whose knowledge is important, who are we including in our curriculum, I want art to be a huge part of that. So I continue to think about how to infuse that into my teaching. I also am thinking about how to increase more collaborative online experiences for teacher candidates during the pandemic. And this is something that we see in the research, wanting to increase social presence and have students learn from interactions with each other. And so I need to think about how to do that more successfully within these online spaces. Although I touted the importance of having the students plan their lessons and teach their lessons, I really want to think about how to increase the feedback that I can give them and they can get from their peers during this lesson planning cycle. I think that it was too individualized, and I want to think about how to increase kind of the collaboration within that space. And that also connects to them actually teaching the lesson. So all 60 of them did teach these great art history lessons one-on-one over Zoom with their child study student, but I wasn't able to be as present as I would like during those teaching experiences, and so I'm still brainstorming ways to support their online teaching endeavors as their teacher educator. So vast areas to improve as I think about teaching online for pre-service teachers. So what are the implications of this study for the field and future research? Well, I'll keep coming back to this collaboration. I found in my face-to-face classes how much the teacher candidates benefited from making artwork in small groups and being inspired by each other. So how can we increase collaboration in online spaces, both for art making, art thinking, and art lesson planning? So that's something I'll continue to wrestle with and be very eager to hear other people's ideas. Still thinking so much about lesson planning facilitation. How can we as teacher educators research and support teacher candidates in lesson planning in online spaces? So more research on this is an implication from the study. And with the lesson planning, how do we support teacher candidates in online spaces for teaching the lesson and then receiving feedback after it. A lot of research is coming out of the importance of in the moment interactions with teacher candidates as they're learning to teach. And so, how does that happen in online spaces, especially for art teachers? That's something that I think needs more research, and I would love to talk with you all more about. Here's a list of references for the study, and I will make a PowerPoint of this available for you if you want to look closer at them, because I know they're very small text. Again, my name is Jenny Gawronski. Here's my email address, jennygaw@uw.edu. I would love to be in conversation with anyone that's wrestling with these ideas or want to talk more about art teacher preparation during COVID-19. Thank you so much for listening.